Welcome to day 5 of our daily Bible devotions. Today is the last of our exploration on the topic of origin with Professor John Lennox. Today he's going to talk about the need for the physical law and personal agency to combine together in order to aid creation. Not just creation of the universe, but in every creation, in every invention that aids technology nowadays. Professor John Lennox will explain more about the need for these two to come together. And he will continue to explore even the limits of science and how that's not a bad thing, but actually a good thing.
Just as I can admire the genius behind a work of engineering or art, the more I understand it, so my worship of the Creator increases the more I understand what He has done. That leads us to the second reason that Hawking asks us to choose between God and science. He confuses physical law and personal agency. The choice that he asks us to make is between false alternatives. They don't belong to the same category. His call for us to choose between physics and God is as manifestly absurd as demanding that we choose between physics and the aeronautical engineer Sir Frank Whittle in order to explain the jet engine. For Frank Whittle is a personal agent. He designed and invented it. The principles of physics are the science that help us to understand what he did. And we need both explanations in order to fully understand a jet engine. That category mistake was not made by a previous holder of Hawking's chair at Cambridge, Sir Isaac Newton. When Newton discovered his law of gravitation, he did not say, "Now I have the law of gravity, I don't need God." No, what he did was to write Principia Mathematica, the most famous book in the history of science, expressing the hope that it would persuade the thinking man to believe in God. The point here is this: the laws of physics can explain how the jet engine works, but not how it came to exist in the first place. It is self-evident that a jet engine could not have been created by the laws of physics on their own. That task needed the intelligence and creative engineering work of Frank Whittle. Come to think of it, even the laws of physics plus Frank Whittle could not on their own produce a jet engine. There also needs to be some material around the place that is subject to those laws and that can be used by Whittle to make the engine. There is a further reason why we should not regard science and God as opposed. Science has its limits. The Nobel Prize winner Sir Peter Medawar wrote, "The existence of a limit to science is made clear by its inability to answer childlike elementary questions having to do with first and last things. Questions such as, how did everything begin? What are we all here for? What is the point of living?" The very success of science is due to the narrowness of its focus. It tends to concentrate on the how questions, but not on the questions of purpose, value, and meaning. Now, the Bible concentrates mainly on those questions, although, as we have seen, it does have some very important things to say about the origin of the physical universe.
You see, acknowledging that science has its limits, it's not a bad thing. It's not painting science in a negative light. In fact, it tells us that science is precise because of its limits. In the same way that in research, when you acknowledge the scope and limitation of your research paper, it makes your research more potent, more powerful because it's more narrow and it's more specific. Just like, a butcher will not use a scalpel, but a surgeon will not use a butcher's knife, but will actually use a scalpel because it's more narrow, it's more precise, and it's more helpful. So, in the same way, to each his own. Science focuses on the how, not on the why. The why is actually the area of expertise of the Bible. Scholars keep on telling people the Bible is not a science book. Okay, it has, according to Professor Lennox, it has lots of good things to say about origin, about the how, but its focus, its concentration is on the why, to explain the facts that have been laid out. It's about purpose, value, and meaning. That's it for the first part of Professor Lennox's message on the topic of origin. You will hear from him again after we discuss teleological argument, because the latter part of this lecture from him talks about the design, and that's on the teleological argument.